There are moments in a man's life that don't announce themselves. They don't arrive with music or ceremony or warning. They arrive as a quiet vibration in your pocket, a name on a screen, and then a sentence that rearranges everything you thought you knew about your future. For Tiger Woods, a man who has stood over 1,000 putts with the entire world watching, who has won 15 major championships while carrying the psychological weight of an entire nation's expectations, who has survived scandal, surgeries, a destroyed marriage, a car crash that nearly took his leg. For that man, a single piece of news in the early hours of a Tuesday morning reportedly did something that none of those catastrophes ever managed to do. It stopped him completely, and then it started him moving in a direction no one could have predicted. Within 60 minutes of receiving the news, according to sources close to his inner circle, Tiger Woods had already made his first call. Not to a lawyer, not to his publicist, not to his caddy or his coach or his business manager. He called a jeweler, and before the sun had fully risen on that day, a man worth an estimated $1.1 billion had reportedly committed $890,000 of it to a single list in under 24 hours. What was on that list? Why those specific things? And what does it tell us about who Tiger Woods is when the cameras finally stop rolling? Stay with me, because this story is not about the money. It was never about the money. If you've ever followed Tiger Woods, not the golfer but the human being buried underneath the mythology, then you already know that this man does not do anything impulsively. Not publicly, anyway. He is, by every psychological profile and first-hand account, one of the most calculated, compartmentalized, emotionally guarded individuals to ever walk through professional sports. His former caddy Steve Williams once described working with Tiger as operating in a permanent information blackout. His ex-wife Ellen Nordegren, years after their divorce, told a reporter that even after years of marriage, there were entire rooms inside Tiger that she never got to enter. This is a man who won his first Masters at 21 years old and described it, not as joy but as executing the plan. That's who we're talking about. A man whose default setting is control, whose greatest weapon has always been the refusal to let the outside world see what's happening inside. So when a man like that, when this specific man, reportedly abandons every filter he has ever built and spends nearly $1 million in one day out of pure emotional reaction, you have to ask yourself, what exactly did that pregnancy news unlock inside him? And was it joy? Or was it something far more complicated than that? If you've ever loved someone and been terrified of what that love might cost you, drop something in the comments. Because what comes next, I think, is going to resonate somewhere deeper than you expect. Let's go back. Because to understand the 24 hours after, you need to understand the decade before. In November of 2009, Tiger Woods was arguably the most famous human being on the planet. He had 14 major championships, a Nike deal worth hundreds of millions, a seemingly perfect family, a beautiful Swedish wife, 2 young children, a waterfront estate in Florida. And then, in the early hours of November 27th, everything collapsed in a single night. What followed wasn't just a scandal. It was a public dismantling. A man being stripped down in real time in front of hundreds of millions of people until there was almost nothing left. He lost his marriage. He lost several major sponsorships. He lost the carefully constructed image that had taken his entire life to build. And for a man whose identity was so thoroughly enmeshed with perfection, with the idea of control, of executing the plan, losing that image wasn't just humiliating. By many psychological accounts, it was existential. The years that followed were a kind of long, slow rebuilding. A DUI arrest in 2017. A devastating car accident in February of 2021 that doctors initially feared would require amputation of his right leg. Surgeries, physical therapy, the grinding uncertainty of whether he would ever compete again. But he did compete again. Because Tiger Woods, whatever else you might say about him, does not stay down. And somewhere in that long climb back, he met Vanessa West, a lawyer, a woman, by all accounts, who was not easily impressed by fame and had no particular interest in being absorbed into the Tiger Woods mythology. She moved through his world on her own terms, and people close to Tiger reportedly said she was one of the only people who could make him genuinely laugh. Not the polished press conference laugh, but the real one. The one that surprised even him. Now imagine being Tiger Woods, Imagine carrying the specific wreckage of your past into a new relationship, into something that feels, maybe for the first time in years, like it might actually be real. And then imagine receiving news that you are going to be a father again. What does that feel like for a man who already knows, better than almost anyone alive, exactly what is at stake when you fail a family? The phone call to the jeweler came first, and this is where the list begins. The first item, reportedly, was a custom diamond bracelet, not a ring, which is notable, because a ring carries a specific public declaration that Tiger has historically avoided. A bracelet says something different. A bracelet says, "I see you. I want to adorn you, but I'm not making a promise to the world yet. I'm making a promise to you." According to reports, the piece was designed with a yellow diamond at its center. Yellow, not white, which in the jewelry world represents warmth and optimism and new beginnings. The estimated cost for that single piece alone was reportedly $220,000. He didn't negotiate. He didn't request a second opinion or ask for alternatives. By all accounts, he described what he wanted, approved the design, and moved on within the hour, because there were more calls to make. The second item on the list was not jewelry. It was property. Specifically, a private beachfront lot in a gated community in Jupiter, Florida, less than 12 miles from Tiger's own compound, that had recently come to market. The asking price was reportedly $310,000. Tiger paid it in full the same day in cash. No inspection contingency, no negotiation period, just a decision made in the window of hours between learning he was going to be a father again and the sun going down on that same day. Now, you might be asking yourself, why property? Why not jewelry, or a car, or some other grand romantic gesture? And I think the answer to that question tells you more about Tiger Woods than almost anything else on this list. Because Tiger Woods grew up without stability. His father, Earl, was a deeply complicated man, brilliant, devoted in his way, but also controlling, and not always present in the ways that mattered. Tiger has spoken in careful, guarded terms over the years about the pressure of his childhood, about the feeling that love was conditional on performance. And when a man like that, a man with that specific wound, wants to express that a new child is safe, that they are wanted, that they will not have to perform for their place in his world, he buys land. He buys permanence. He buys a place that says, "You will always have somewhere to come home to." This is the part of the story where I think it's worth pausing. Because right now, you might be forming an opinion about Tiger, about whether this spending was genuine or performative, about whether he's changed or whether old patterns simply found a new expression. And I want to ask you something genuinely. What do you think? Not about Tiger specifically, but about what it means when someone tries to love better than they were loved? When they reach for the only language they know, action, achievement, acquisition, to say something their words can't hold. Is that redemption? Or is it just a different kind of running away? The third item on the list moves us away from property and back to the personal. And this one, I think, is the one that most reveals the inner architecture of what Tiger was feeling in those hours. He reportedly commissioned a private art piece, specifically a hand-painted portrait of a tree. Not a photograph, not a digital print. A painting, done by a Haitian-American artist based in Miami whose work Tiger had quietly followed for over 2 years. The tree in the portrait is a particular species, a mahogany tree, known for its density and its extraordinary lifespan. Mahogany trees don't just survive, they outlast. They are passed down through generations as landmarks, as meeting points, as proof that something living endured. The commission reportedly cost $85,000. And Tiger gave only one instruction to the artist. Paint it with roots showing above the ground. Roots that are visible. Roots that you don't have to imagine or assume are there. Roots you can actually see. If you've spent any time studying Tiger's public statements over the years, particularly in the period after his accident, you'll know that the concept of roots, of legacy, of what we leave behind, has appeared with increasing frequency in his language. This wasn't accidental symbolism. This was a man, in the immediate hours of learning a new life was coming, trying to articulate something he had perhaps never fully articulated before. I want this child to know where they came from. I want them to see the roots. The fourth purchase was for his older children, Sam, who is now in her mid-teens, and Charlie, who has begun showing his father's gift for the game in ways that have made grown men in the golf world go quiet with recognition. Tiger reportedly arranged, through a private concierge service, a custom experience for both of them. A week-long trip to Scotland, to St. Andrews, the oldest golf course in the world, with private access to archives that most people never see. Photographs, scorecards, handwritten correspondence from players who shaped the game a century before Tiger was born. The estimated cost of that arrangement was $175,000. And this tells us something important, because in the immediate flood of emotion after pregnancy news, Tiger's mind went not just forward, to the new child coming, but backward, to the children already here, as though some part of him understood that the arrival of new love does not diminish existing love, that the family expanding is not the family dividing, that Sam and Charlie deserve to know, in the most Tiger Woods way possible, through legacy, through history, through the cathedral of the game that connects all of them, that they were not being left behind. If you've ever been in a blended family, or worried about what a new beginning might mean for the people who were there for the difficult chapters, you already know exactly what Tiger was trying to say with that gift. And sometimes, the things we can't say out loud, we have to build instead. The fifth and final item on the list is perhaps the smallest in dollar value, and by far the most revealing. Among everything else, the diamonds, the land, the art, the Scotland trip, Tiger reportedly also ordered a single item from a small family-run bookstore in Windermere, Florida. A first-edition copy of a children's book. A book that his own mother, Cultida, had read to him as a very young child. A book about a young tiger cub who gets separated from his family during a storm and spends the length of the story learning to navigate the forest alone, learning to read the signs in the bark of trees and the direction of the wind, until he finds his way back. The book cost $200. $200 in a list that totals nearly $890,000. And yet, by every account of people who know Tiger well, it was the first thing he ordered. Before the jeweler, before the property, before anything else on the list. He found the book first. He paid for the book first. And he reportedly requested it be delivered directly to Vanessa, with no note attached. No explanation, no card, just the book. Because some things don't need explanation. Because sometimes the man who has been lost in the storm for longer than anyone realized. Sometimes he just wants to show someone that he found his way back. That the forest didn't keep him. That he's home. Now think about everything we've just walked through together. A diamond bracelet that says I see you. A piece of land that says you are safe here. A painting of roots that says I want you to know where you came from. A journey through history that says I haven't forgotten the ones who were here before. And a $200 children's book that says, perhaps more quietly and honestly than any of the rest, I know what it is to be lost. And I know what it means to come back. That's not a spending spree. That's a confession. That's a man writing a letter in the only language that comes naturally to him. Not words, not press conferences, not curated public statements, but things. Things with weight. Things that last. Things that can be held and touched and passed down. Tiger Woods has spent his entire adult life being many things to many people. A champion. A symbol. Cautionary tale. Comeback story. But in the space of one extraordinary 24-hour window, he was none of those things. He was just a man. Scared, hopeful, imperfect, trying in the biggest and smallest ways simultaneously to be better than the version of himself he has always been afraid of. And maybe that's the most human story of all. Not the victories, not the failures, but the moment between them when someone decides, quietly, privately, without anyone watching, to try again. If this story found you at a moment when you needed a reminder that people are capable of more than their worst chapters, that the distance between who we've been and who we're trying to become is always worth crossing, then this channel was made for you. Every story here is about that distance, about the version of ourselves we're reaching for when no one is looking. If that's a story worth following, you already know what to do.